Hey, Braden, I've got your testing program here, and it's very confusing. It certainly doesn't work. So let's take a look at it. Okay, here's your template. Convert or calculate two types of values. At least test three different things. Use integers, floating point, negative, positive, if appropriate. You said your input was numbers to convert. So you're going to have an input, okay? And then your output is going to be the conversions, okay? But it doesn't say what you're converting. Are you converting feet to miles? Are you converting centimeters to inches? Are you converting? I don't know. This is pretty poor pseudocode because it doesn't tell me anything. I have no idea what you're going to write. So at least you tell me what you're converting. Let's see. Oh, there's the beginning of your code. Where's your name? Should have your name, date, and a short description of the program right at the beginning. Missing. Your program always starts with a name, date, and all of that. So let's see. Let's copy this program. And let's see, what'd you copy? 7, 5, -3, a lot of. Okay, so you did some positive numbers, negative numbers. Hopefully you did some decimal numbers, 0, something along the lines. So what's the problem you ran into? The final absolute value says -7 is not the absolute value of 7, which is correct because absolute value is always a positive number. So if you want the absolute value of 7, it's going to be 7. If you want the absolute value of -7, it's going to be 7. So the final absolute value says -7 is not the absolute value of 7. That's true because the absolute value of 7 would be a positive 7. So, all right, well, let's look at, oh, you didn't answer that one. Let's look at your program in a Python window. All right, so I pasted in here. Let's run it. Oh, so I didn't have to do an input. You just automatically input the numbers in a list, I see. Most of the people had it where someone would type in a number and it would convert it or whatever. So the absolute value of -2 is -7, false. Absolute value of -4 is -7, false. 5 is -7, false. Right, but your absolute value of 7 is not -7. That's awful. But so this means your program doesn't work because it should be true. You should fix your program to where it does give you the absolute value. This is not giving me the absolute value of any of those numbers. Because for one thing, every one of them says it's -7. Well, an absolute value cannot be a negative number. So there's never any number that the absolute value is going to be a negative number. So why does it say everyone is -7? This looks like you took the program that was in our lesson, which the program in our lesson was made to be wrong so that you'd have to test it and fix it. But it looks like you took that program and made it even more wrong instead of fixing it. Let's see. So you're saying this is the absolute value function. So if you send a number X that is less than 0, you're saying add -5 to it, and that'll give you the absolute value. No, if you send a number like -1, adding -5 to it doesn't give you the absolute value because the absolute value should be a positive 1. If you send -10, the absolute value should be positive 10. So anytime you send a number less than 0, you don't add -5 to it. That'll never give you the absolute value. That'll make it more wrong. And then it says else if it's greater than 0, just return that number. Well, that's true because the absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value of 13 is 13. The absolute value of 1 is 1. Absolute value of 2.8 is 2.8. That's all fine. But this is incredibly wrong. And so here's a number list. So you have 7 numbers to test. And this is supposed to be the answers for these numbers. It's not. Because the absolute value of 7 would be 7. 8 would be 8. That one's right. Absolute value of 1 would be 1, not -3. The absolute value of -2 would be a positive 2. -4 would be a positive 4. The absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value of 7 is 7. So I don't know what this answer list is, but it's not, the only one of them is actually the answer. 8 is actually the answer. And then for in and range, you didn't even check the whole list. You said, I'm going to start with number 3. So 0, 1, 2. You just started with -2. For some reason, you skipped the first numbers in your list. So I'm not even checking those. So yeah, that's why we got -2, -4, 5, and 7, because you skipped these three. For some reason, you decided, I'm going to jump over here. Start with number 3. And you said the absolute value equals absolute value num list 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. So every time you're saying the absolute value is going to send -2 up here, it's going to subtract -5 from it or add a -5 and come back with -7. That's why it has -7 every time. You're saying every time, no matter what the number is you're using, and you start with -2, send -2 up to that function and give me the absolute value, which is wrong. And then when you get to -4, you said, don't send -4 up there. Send again the -2, the third item. Send every time you're sending the third item. Send the third item. Send the third item. And then you say, is this correct? Does the absolute value equal the third item on the answer list? Which is -4, it looks like. And it'll say, no, it's false. So I don't know. You took a problem, you took a lesson program. So you took a program from the lesson, which was designed to be wrong. So you'd have to test different numbers and fix it. And you made it even more wrong. So I don't know what to do with that. Maybe you'd been better off just converting inches to centimeters or feet to miles or miles to feet or something easy instead of trying to do this absolute value thing, which is totally wrong. Yeah, the absolute value would be just the positive number of each one of those. 1. Oh, that's a decimal. Should be a comma right there. 2, 4, 5, 7. So the absolute value would be just the positive of all those numbers. And really, we should test a fraction, like 8.5 or something. And we should use every number, not just the third one on in. So as it goes through the loop, starting from 0, we should test every one, and it should test that number here. Should use in every time. And you don't. What happens if it is 0? 0 is not even included. That's one thing I have to fix. Because look, if I test 0, because the absolute value of 0 should be 0. Right? Absolute value of 0 should be 0. If the number is less than 0, you just multiply it by -1, and that'll make it a positive. So -2 times -1 would be a +2, which is the absolute value. Local n. Okay, that's something with the loop here. That I've got it on line 14 for n in range. I can look back at the program, see how they did that. But anyway, you got a lot of issues with this program. So I'll get some kind of grade on it for what it does. But it doesn't look like you wrote a whole lot of code. You just stole the code from the lesson and made it worse. So and then the testing numbers were some positive and some negative. Didn't test 0, didn't test a decimal number or anything. But all right, yeah. If you need help with these things, get with me. That's what these asynchronous days are for. Or you can always email me programs. But this one should have been a relatively easy one. In fact, I wrote this in class yesterday for some students, and other than my name, date, purpose, define main, and ending main, it took 3 lines of code to write this program. 3. It was an input statement, enter a number of miles, and then I converted like miles to feet, and then I printed out the answer. This is how many feet that is. And so when you run the program, it pop up a little box, and I type in, okay, test 10 miles. Okay, test 0 miles, test 28.6 miles. And I could test all these different numbers that would work, but it just took 3 lines of code. So this was a very, very simple program that it looks like you wasn't even sure where to start and just decided to go off the bad program in the lesson. So, reach out if you need help with these things, because this one should have been pretty simple. And it looks like you really, really struggled with it. So, all right, I'll see you in class.